capacity management. We'll come back to chapter 4, lean systems. Chapter 3, chapter 4 are very synonymous with each other, so I want to kind of break it up a little bit. Capacity planning seems to be more of an interesting perspective. But before we get into chapter 5, we're going to look at our project objectives, right? And have each person come up here and tell us exactly what their objective is for their project, for their business. What do they hope to achieve with that objective, and how they hope to get there, right, to meeting the objective. So take some volunteers. Who wants to come up here and break the ice for us? Who wants to tell me their project objective? What is your objective? Remember, objective is extremely important, right? Because in essence, it describes your most major goals in achieving what you want to achieve. Right? Yes?
Oh, I can do it.
You can do it. All right. Anyone have trouble with figuring out an objective for their business?
I thought it was due this Sunday, the project objective.
You have all week, right? You have all week to kind of talk about it, but some people are probably ready to, express. You don't all have to come up here. Who is done with their project objective? All right, we have one person. All right, think about it. A project objective should not be that difficult to express, right? Because really I'm asking like, hey, what do you want to achieve with this company, right? But usually you have a mission statement, which is usually not that long, right? You have an objective statement, which usually is your project objective, right? What do you truly hope to achieve with this? How could you describe what it is you hope to achieve to investors, right? The banks that you're presenting to, right? Non-banking institutions, customers, right? Who want to look up like, hey, what's your objective? Like, what do you hope to achieve here, and why? Why do you hope to achieve? What's the point of getting through it? So think about that. All right, we got one person here, so let's see if we can kind of get an idea of what a project objective looks like.
Do you want me to go up or?
Yeah, you can go up. It makes it better to go up because as we'll start presenting more information, everybody can get comfortable.
So the project objective was to provide fresh bread and bread kits for a health-focused consumer. Think that could say a similar consumer base as like Trader Joe's and Whole Foods, that type of consumer. The starting sum of the entire project, bakeries normally start with anywhere from 40 to 50,000. I shot a little high and said 75 to be able to afford specialty equipment like extra large mixers. Deliverables, obviously, a variety of fresh breads and bread kits, which will include all the dry ingredients needed to bake the specific type of bread, as well as the instructions to produce the bread. Specific milestones would be opening the storefront for sales to customers, expanding to hiring more people to work in the business and increase the output, and then processes to make it a little bit more automated and a little bit more seamless. Technical requirements would be ovens, digital scales, industrial mixers, and cash registers. They may not come with a rental space. Some rental spaces do, however, some do not, so depending on the rental space. Other possible requirements would be like, they're called dessert cases, but it would be display cases for the different products. Limitations would be the scale of the space to production. Many bakery spaces, especially rentals, are not very large. So that would be one such limitation, and an exclusion is that the bakery would be bread only, focusing solely on the bread rather than specialty items like cakes and donuts will free up more time to be focused on the bread and recipe development. And then a customer review would be done through a secret shopper program in which their purchase would be reimbursed through the company. So they would go in, have the customer experience of purchasing the bread or ordering the bread, and then give us a thorough review of their experience, what they thought of the business, and then they would obviously be reimbursed for their purchase at the bakery.
All right. Excellent. All right, so what all did we hear in that objective? One, we saw the major goals, right? What's your major goal to service whoever you're going to be servicing, right? We saw how you expect to get there. What's the process by which you're going to design this whole objective to make you meet the criteria? And how you're gonna have a feedback system to look in to see what could be improved, right? So we saw things about how you can improve, because everything needs continuous improvement. So we saw a whole circular sort of expression of how the business should look in terms of getting to what it needs to get to, right? Depending on the perspective of the owner, which is great, right? So think about that. You have to express that to an investor, a bank. Quick 3-minute summation about what's your idea, how you expect to achieve it, right? Get more technical, you can talk financials a little bit later after that, but for the most part, that would be a good sales pitch on the idea. All right, moving along. We're at capacity planning, and we're gonna be looking at a few things. Here we're gonna look at defining long-term capacity in relationship with economies and diseconomies of scale. What's economies of scale? Who knows what economies of scale is? Economies of scale. All right. Economies of scale. All right. And economies of scope. Who knows the difference? Scale and scope. All right. So you say, hey, you're reducing costs. Reducing costs by producing a lot. Right, here you say you're reducing costs by differentiation or different products. Alright. So economies of scale is you being able to reduce the cost both to you and to effectively reduce the cost to a customer, which is a competitive advantage, right? By you being able to either produce more or sell more. You can think of everyday low cost strategy of Walmart, right? How does Walmart have the ability to have the lowest costs? How do they go about doing it? Right, by having the most things available, but usually by having really great suppliers, or even the most suppliers of things that's needed. So effectively, they're able to have a ton of stuff because they've met the demand, right? They've met the demand of how many people they can service in order to drop the price, which essentially gives them a greater profit at the end of the day. Economies of scope is relative to having different products, different categories of product, right? So you say, hey, I don't want to have just one offering because that is a limitation in the price that I could charge. So how can I go about creating a profit and reducing the cost to myself by having separate products, right? Separate categories of products. All right, so when we're thinking of capacity planning, we're thinking of just theoretically that you have a business or you even have yourself, and it's only you for your schoolwork, you only could do so much work within the time frame that you're allowed to do it in a 24-hour period, right? So it's like, how do you go about planning the ability to achieve your highest results with a limited amount of time that you have, right? With all the other things you got going on. How do you yield the greatest results with all of the constraints? So when we're looking at capacity planning, we're thinking of a few things. Hey, we're Starbucks. A restriction for Starbucks in meeting capacity, right, which is demand. A restriction would be time, right? You say, we are only open from 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. to 9 p.m., right? How many people can we serve effectively within that frame of time with what we got? You say, well, what do you have? I have X amount of employees, right? I only have X amount of employees. You say, well, with that X amount of employees, are you able to service everyone that shows up here? Like, yeah, we can. But in what way? What capacity? like, we serve them pretty good. When you say pretty good, it's not good enough, because you have competitors who do it better. So if you don't have enough employees to service the demand, you say, well, guess what? Now we got a reduction in quality, right? So we say, hey, effectively, I'm thinking about planning the Starbucks so it could be very successful. It could meet the demand of the neighborhood or the area, but I don't have enough employees. We still are able to get all the cups of coffee and et cetera out, but it comes at an expense. The expense is a reduction in quality, right? Reduction in quality means you lost customers. They went to another Starbucks, so it costs you money. Well, you say, well, what can we do about it? Well, to hire more employees, right? Increase the number of employees to meet the demand. What happens if you increase the number of employees too much? Or if you give the type of employees that you already have too much time, give them overtime. What's bad about that? What's the pros and cons? What's the pros and cons about having too many employees or giving them too much work? Too much time, yes?
You have to pay more for them?
Yeah, right? You have to pay more for them. You say, you know what? There's different times of the day when we need them. There's other times of the day we don't need them. What could you do? You say, hey, during rush hour at the morning and in the afternoon is when we need X amount of employees. But the gap in between 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., like, actually just got a bunch of people standing around, which in essence losing money. What could we do? What could we do as an owner about that?
Do shorter split shifts.
Yeah, right, you say, think of, hey, shorter split shifts, right? What if you say, hey, you know what, looking at the demand, we'll look at the data from previous quarter, previous year to see what we expect the number of people to come through. And we're looking at it from a seasonal perspective. What could we do within a season if there's a high demand or low demand? Yeah.
Temp employees.
Right, okay, interesting, we do temp employees, right? We say, hey, you know what, we don't need to hire full-time employees, we just need temporary workers, right? Contract workers of some sort. Now think of beyond time, what could be some other restrictions that limits your capacity? Because remember we said we're trying to really optimize whatever it is we do. We're trying to be 100% optimized, which means that you're able to service either effectively all the people that come within that time frame, right? Or meet the demand if you're producing something, let's say it's a car part, screws, or anything, shoes, that you're effectively able to meet the demand by having that rate of production. What are some other limitations for that, besides time? What you could think of in terms of other limitations? You're running a business, what can the business be limited by that affects their utilization? Right, you're like, hey, we just don't have the money, right? We don't have the resources. You don't have the money, you don't have the stuff. Right? Essentially, you don't have the stuff to sell. Or in essence, we ran out of the stuff, right? So what can we do about that? Well, we say, hey, you know what? We don't need this big of a place. We don't need this many employees. We have to make some changes. We need a new strategy. Right? A new strategy. Right, so we have to constantly come up with new strategies. We're looking at previous year's information, previous quarter, previous week, previous month, and we're trying to meet the expectations or demand for each time frame in which we service customers. So we have to develop some new strategies. Right? So here we can think of, we wanna understand main differences between expansionist and wait and see capacity timing and sizing strategies. Are we going to have too much to offer to make sure that we service everyone? And we service everyone in a way that's deemed of equality, right? Having too much may not be the greatest thing, but it may be great in that we can keep our consumer base, right? Do we have too little? So we say we don't waste. What do you think is best, to have too much or have too little in your offerings to your customers? What would you prefer? Right, because you're trying to find some perfect match. Perfection is probably, theoretically unrealistic, right? But we're trying to always optimize, get as close to perfect as possible. What would be your preference as an owner? Right, barbershop. Would you rather be like, hey, you know what? I'd rather not have a bunch of barbers sitting around, but potentially if more customers come in for haircuts, I may not have enough barbers to service them. So what would you prefer if you had to take? Would you rather have too much or too little?
I'd probably say maybe too little. That way I can just reschedule maybe.
All right, so we say, you know what, no waste, right? Because you do gotta pay those people, probably sitting around to pay, depending on the contract or whatever you have with them. So you said to be more efficient, you rather just, have too little,
Yeah.
right? To be more efficient. You say effectively, I'm not losing any money, but maybe you are, right? Because you're like, hey, there's more people who wanna get in and expand the business and all that. Who thinks having too much is a good thing? Who prefer? Why would you prefer it?
Because then customers are kind of like felt more welcome and like they get like in there a lot quicker and faster without having to wait.
Right, so we say, hey, effectively, you're keeping customers happy, and that's objectively what it's all about. But if you're left with a ton of stuff, inventory, now you gotta reduce the price, put it on clearance, something of the sort, you're still losing money there, right? Because you purchase something at a price from your suppliers, and now you have too much, you have to maybe get rid of it, right? Depending on the industry that you're in. So we'll look at some different strategies, right? Wait and see, or expansionists. We'll identify some systematic four-step approach for determining long-term capacity requirements and associate cash flows. And we'll describe how common tools for capacity planning, such as weight and line models, stimulation, decision trees, assist in growing your business. So back to either like a Starbucks, right? You say your capacity planning revolves around human work mixed with machines. So you say, well, with human beings, I know they gotta take a break. They're not robots, right? I know they may call in sick, right? I know they have to go to the restroom. I know that they may get tired, right? So you have to really place into perspective a lot of things that happen. Because if you're drafting up this plan without consideration of things that are realistic, then your plan's gonna be hyper unrealistic, right? So you wanna take in minute details of how this all could run smooth with considerations of either automation, machines, or human beings, right? Human beings have gaps in their workflow. All right, so we're looking at the maximum rate of output of a process or a system, right? Which we'll call throughput, right? But here we're looking at the maximum output. How many haircuts can you make in 8 hours? Right, you say that is if it's just one barber, that's my capacity. How many dogs can we service here at our dog facility, right? Through our hours of operation. At the bakery, how many cupcakes can we sell, right? How many cakes can we sell? How many custom orders do we take and actually produce something of worth, of quality, within the times that we're open at? So we're looking at how do you manage capacity, right? Long term, you say, hey, economies and diseconomies of scale. Maybe you say, you know what, we don't want to have too much of something We don't wanna be the low-cost leader, right? Everybody, no, we're not the low-cost leader. That's not what this company is about. Maybe we're about expensive things. So we need to produce less in order to create a niche for our customers to buy. So we may have a diseconomies of scale. It really depends on what your objectives are, right? Capacity, timing, and sizing strategies, right? We're looking at size, how many people do you need there? How many machines do you need there at that particular location, right? And in long term, we need a systematic approach in order to reorganize these things, maybe on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, monthly or seasonal basis. All right, so we're dealing here with the theory of constraints for constraint management. All we're thinking about is what are we constrained by? What is stopping us from yielding the greatest amount of results possible, right? What is stopping you from growing at the rate at which you want to grow? So we think of the bakery, say, hey, you know what, what's stopping us from growing? You know, we just don't have enough product. It's not possible to make these many cakes at this location, right? It's not possible to service these many people, right? So a constraint could be actual inventory product, and it's just not possible. Maybe the constraint is your equipment. You say, we don't have enough ovens to bake, 1,000 cupcakes a day. All right, so what do? Maybe we reopen a new location that can do more because we see that the demand is high, right? Or we need more employees, or we need better preparation times, right? What's stopping us in this process? Right, so we want to identify and manage bottlenecks. What's stopping us, right? Bottlenecks is things that slow down the process, right? Things that slow down the process, that make it more narrow, and makes it more difficult to achieve that output that we want. So theoretically, you think of what could be some bottlenecks for companies in terms of sales, productions, whatever. What could be a bottleneck that you think of?
Just human capital, how many people you can hire at capacity while still being able to afford it.
Yeah, right, so you say the human capital, right, could be a bottleneck. You don't have enough people. In dealing back with employees, what else could be a bottleneck? What about employees could slow you down, slow down your operations, your business? Right, you just may not have some great employees, right? You may have some good employees, and you got other ones who are really slow, right? Even if it's on an assembly line, a factory, you're thinking of, hey, this person, we measured, they're getting their output that we need for our daily goals. This person is really slow. They took 12 bathroom breaks, right? They're on their phone, right? They're doing something of the sort that's stopping the process from meeting our objectives for today, right? So we just may not have good employees. And so you say, well, how do you manage that? Either you retrain them to make them better, or you may have to terminate and hire. We say terminate and hire requires money, it requires time. You have time for someone may not fill that position. You don't know if you're getting a great employee, so that's at a risk as well too. That's something we have to consider. Right, product mix decision using bottlenecks, right? So look at, hey, how do we mix up our various products during the bottlenecks in order to maybe overcome those constraints. Maybe one thing has to be produced more than the other at a certain time. Right? And we're looking at managing constraints in a line process. Right? Line process, you could think of either an assembly line, a factory, a distribution center, a warehouse, right? Moving something from point A to point B to achieve a goal. Or you can go back to Subway sandwiches, right? What's the line process of Subway sandwiches? Right? What's the constraints there? Maybe you're out of something, maybe someone's slow, something of the sort. All right, some output measures of capacity. They're best utilized when applied to individual processes within the firm, or when the firm provides a relatively small number of standardized services and products. Right, so in essence, the less things you offer, the easier it is to measure. Right, the less things you offer, the easier it is to measure. So sometimes having simplicity is better, because at least you're able to measure and keep up. But you have 1,000 products to offer. You could think of the difficulty in trying to manage how efficient you are with 1,000 things, right? It's gonna make it more difficult. So sometimes small number is good. Big number could be good if it's the demand, right? Whatever the demand is, you wanna meet it. And we got input measures of capacity, generally used for low volume, flexible processes. Right, things that we don't produce much of, and they're flexible, they can be changed throughout the process. And then with utilization, we're thinking of the degree to which equipment, space, or the workforce is currently being used. Right, so how well are you utilizing this space? You could go into a lot of restaurants and see kind of how they organize the tables, and you say, oh man, this looks really bad, because you have so much extra floor space to add more tables, and now you have a full house, you're not able to meet the demand because you've improperly spaced things, right? You could go into, say, some Starbucks, and you're like, man, why is it a bunch of people just chilling in Starbucks all day? All right? And there's a lot of empty space over here on the other side of it. You're like, what, the Starbucks is just too big. Why do you need this retail space? You're paying a lot of rent, and it doesn't appear that it's even used. You have a lot of stuff you don't use here. Right? So we say poor utilization. Poor utilization is bad, because really you have too much of something, and that's basically just wasteful. Think of your own social life. What's being poorly utilized in your own social life? What do you feel is wasteful right now in your life? Can you think of anything? Where do you feel that you're not utilizing at maximum capacity? Right, it could be commute. Right, it could be money. You could be wasting a ton of money eating out here at the university or somewhere nearby when you could be more efficient. Right, you're not working at optimum capacity to retain a lot of your earnings, your money. Maybe it's your time. Right, you're not utilizing your time well. Your grades will suffer. Right, right? This could be applied to even our own personal life. All right, and we say it's measured as the ratio of average output to maximum capacity, expressed as a percentage. So if maximum capacity is 100%, that means we're operating at 100% capacity. We want to see our average output rate on top of that, right, multiplied by our maximum capacity, and therefore we see our utilization. So maybe you could say, hey, full capacity is 100%. We're operating at full capacity. We meet our demand. Anything below that measure, we say maybe on Tuesdays we operate at 85% capacity. Right? Wednesdays we operate at 90%. Thursdays, really bad day, we operate at 75% because we don't have the right employees or some other factor. All right, and lastly, let's think of this before we get into groups, and I'll ask you about utilization. All right, so with economies of scale, we say we want to spread fixed costs, right? We want to spread out have fixed costs. We spread out those fixed costs by having more units of something, right? So we're able to lower costs we're able to spread those fixed costs by increasing in the number of something, able to reduce that. Here we're saying even reduction of construction costs could be considered economies of scale. Here we say cutting costs of purchased materials, right? We wanna operate with economies of scale, we start to look at our suppliers and we cut costs there, or finding process advantages. So another way of achieving economies of scale is being efficient in the process. Eliminating steps within the process can achieve economies of scale, right? So it's an economies of scale where you're looking at reducing the average cost of maybe a unit of something, right? In which case we could transfer those cost savings to our customers and that creates a competitive advantage. We're able to beat our customers by lowering costs by achieving it through these means. All right, how do you get diseconomies of scale? Not lowering the cost, right? It may be an objective of yours, but if it's not an objective, you say, hey, you know what? I came up with an idea for my business that's just too complex, right? But simply, if you like, how do you make money? And someone has to explain 20 ways of how the process finally is complete, you'd be like, well, that's way too complex, right? In essence, you're losing money because the process is too complex. All right, loss of focus, we could say that you lose your objective on what you originally wanted to achieve, and that creates a diseconomy of scale. And just operating inefficiently within the process creates a diseconomy of scale. All right, so let's do this. Let's get into, well, here, with our own businesses, let's try to jot down at least 5 things that we could be, obstacles that can reduce our either capacity or utilization, right? Things that can be deemed as inefficient, right? Let's also think of some ways that we can reduce the costs. Let's think of some ways with our companies how we can reduce the costs so that we can transfer the cost to our customers to have a competitive advantage. Let's get 5 minutes of thinking of some things for our own companies. Alright, what we come up with? Let's go through. Alright, what we come up with? Start here. What did you think of?
For mine, I said, since I'm working with fine wrapping,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing, not ordering like a bunch of different colors, as like most of the wrapping just sitting in the inventory. So instead of only having inventory of common colors, which are the ones that are mostly bought, and having special colors would be ordered upon request. I also said, having around 4 to 6 professionals per shop, having 2 on normal vehicles, 2 on commercial vehicles like buses and stuff,
Mhm.
ads, and 2 on paint protection field installing.
Alright, so you say, hey, you know what, in order to maximize our output, utilize our best resources, let's not have a ton of colors, right? Let's have the most popular things that people want for vinyl wrapping, right? Let's have, segment the employees into different groups, some do commercial, some commercial, vehicles, some do others, things of that nature. Could you do even better by saying, you know what, let's just train 3 people to do them all? Or would that impact the number of vehicles you could do,
Yeah.
or the rate
That
of
would
which?
limit like the amount we could do.
Okay. Alright, so we say, hey, you know, you're trying to find a sweet spot. So for you, it's like, hey, 6 is a sweet spot for these 3 different categories of vehicle. Sweet spot is, upon order, we could get you special colored vinyl wrap. But we're not keeping it here, because we keep it here as a city, right? Cause it's special, not everybody wants it, and we're losing money if we just hold it here. Okay, barbershop.
I said, cross training, so like having like like the barbers have to know how to do like multiple things. Not just know how to cut hair, but like, wash the hair and all that stuff, like know how to do all that.
Could the barbers also be able to take payment? Like, are you think you're gonna have like a POS system?
I probably have like when the customers come in, they'll pay like at a certain area right there.
Gotcha, okay. So, but teaching your barbers how to wash, maybe color,
Yeah, all that.
cut, do the payments, all that, clean up as well too.
Yeah, I put that in like a maintenance routine type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said like have efficient scheduling and like a booking system.
Okay, so, scheduling the booking, you only hear if you have a client,
Right.
right? You're not here sitting around waiting for somebody to walk through the door,
Yeah.
that's not what we do here, okay. Good, efficient, yes, Cinderella.
Mine was a housekeeping company, and so I said like give out routes so that like if there's 2 houses close together, it would be like the same person doing those rather than like having somebody else do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like giving individuals with like more experience, maybe like the harder jobs to do,
Mhm.
rather like than the new, employees, and then like buying simple products, like not buying too many products that aren't needed.
Alright, so you say segment by doing, having simple products, right, to effectively do your basic kind of cleaning,
Mhm.
right? Let the people on site also do the next, project if it's nearby, instead of having 2 separate groups of people working on it. Alright, excellent.
Mine was, finding good wholesalers for the different ingredients. So finding the cheapest product while still trying to maintain quality.
Mhm.
Bulk packaging, so being able to find that for a cheaper price.
Mhm.
Only carrying the common or most popular types of products, so the breads, sandwich bread, that type of stuff.
Mhm.
Overnight employees, because there is a bottleneck with how much kneading and rising can be done in a day. So having overnight employees to wash the bread and bake the bread at night.
Mhm.
And then, special ordering if it's not your common like sandwich bread, real wheat bread, if they want a specific type of like roll or something, that would be a special order you're gonna put in.
Okay, so special orders are coming in as needed, and you worked on that, okay. In the back?
I had the like racing restraint stuff. I started by saying like only having like 10 to 12 employees in total, and you could do that through like outsourcing production of the actual product. and then like out of those 10 to 12, train at least like 8 of them to be management, so that you could have like decision making almost across the board, so that it wouldn't be like a have to go to this guy, go to this guy, go to that guy.
Yeah.
And then like utilize free advertising by creating like a heavy online presence, and like at trade shows and stuff like that, so that you won't be spending a lot of money on advertising. And then just making like reasonable sized orders and common sizes of the restraints, not like having too much overhead and having just like stuff laying around that you're not gonna sell.
Okay, cool. Is there a downside to having too many managers, too many decision makers?
So like realistically, a lot of these people probably wouldn't even work like in a brick and mortar together. So I wouldn't think so, because it would be there's a lot of different parts of the business. So like each of them would be like over a part kind of, so they wouldn't really, and some of them they would be the only person in that part, so
Okay.
they would kind of have to
They
make
wouldn't
decisions.
overlap, so now you
Yeah.
have two managers in the same sort of
Yeah.
sphere. Okay.
So for mine, it uses vinyl too, because I'd be doing like custom, cups and clothes and stuff, so buying the vinyl in bulk would be cheaper, and then also like, so when they, like, so things like, there's like just basic vinyl, and then there's like really like special patterns, so like charging more if they wanted to, purchase from that, and then, so mine would just be online for now, since it's like just a starter business, so my idea is for employees,
Okay.
and then just training them to do like each product, cause we do like cups, and then like clothes is a little bit harder, but it's not like super hard, so just training everybody to do everything.
So training everybody to kind of be able to do all the job skills necessary for all the business, right?
Yeah.
That way there's no gap in trying to ask somebody about how to do this and that. All right, that's good. What did you say? I forgot. Charging more for the special vinyl, because maybe you do have it somewhere, but obviously if it's being held somewhere, it's costing you money. So effectively charging so that you don't lose money just in case. Okay. Pricing strategy, yes.
So my needs are the online clothing brand, so I would be living with a catalog of like the clothing line that I will have to then help with like inventory costs. And then a big thing of having an online business is developing like a webpage and website. So instead of like seeking out like a big firm or like professionals, I would seek out like probably like students with the skills, basic skills that would be able to help follow those things and things that I've also been consumers, but I would kind of make it a cost investment.
All right, so again, people at a lower cost, right? Who's able to do the job instead of maybe you may suffer on quality of the website or what it look like, right? If you're not paying somebody to do all this professional stuff, be like, hey, maybe that for now, that's where we're at with it.
So I'm doing like the dog center, and so I said to negotiate like supplier contracts, which could help make like better deals with supply and like equipment that I would need. Also like adjusting like my business hours, like being open from like 8 AM to like 5 PM, having that like time frame, and then use employee like scheduling software, like to help track like staff and like to save time and money, so like who would come in and like who can't show up.
So I'm doing pest control, and I basically just focused on utilizing my time of travel, like scheduling like my customers all in like one area if I can, to reduce cost of time and fuel, and also not buying chemicals, like not buying them in bulk would, I would lose money, so just trying to focus on buying everything kind of together to get a cheaper price.
Okay, so buying as needed, right?
Yeah.
Not buying for the future that may not happen. Okay.
I'm the jewelry business, so finding a reliable manufacturer with a good reputation that means a lot of good customer service. And then later on negotiate, you know how like, once you building a good relationship with them, once you're done.
Okay.
And taking advantage of social media, collaborations and partnerships with other small jewelry brands to get my name out there, and maybe not ordering too much of one product, reducing my supply.
Alright, cool. So anchoring yourself with people who's also doing the same thing, so you can potentially pull up some of their customers or something.
running the church, and so, I said for, like our Sunday school classes, instead of having like 12 classes for each grade, to like group some similar grades together, and so like reduce the number of volunteers that we need.
Okay, excellent.
I think the grill worked out, and I wanted to find reliable suppliers because a lot of the times, there are ingredient shortages, and like, that makes things cost more, like food, like right now costs a lot more, because like food original.
All right, excellent. So in essence, what are we looking for? We're always thinking of, hey, we're operating a business, but what's the sweet spot? Too much is bad, too little is bad, right? So all we're trying to think of, hey, what is the sweet spot to meet the quality that we're trying to get? Remember, we say not everything has to be the best quality, because that may not be your objective. You say, I just need decent quality. Decent quality may means more customers means more money, right? If you get better quality, you may have to change the price now of what you offer, and maybe you don't want to. So you have to think of what's the sweet spot in terms of what you are trying to accomplish with this objective of yours, right? And how do you meet that sweet spot? That's it. All right, that's it for today. You know, if you can, for those who can have some more objectives for Wednesday to talk about, that'd be great, right? Or Friday. So try to work on your objectives so we can discuss those in class. All right, I'll see you on Friday.